Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that might feel counterintuitive but rings true for many. How acts of kindness, while noble and admirable, can sometimes lead to being taken for granted or even disrespected. Kindness is often described as one of the most powerful traits a person can possess. It builds bridges, fosters connections, and makes the world a better place. But why then do we sometimes find that our kindness leads to the opposite outcome, being undervalued, overlooked, or even mistreated? Kindness is often considered one of the most admirable traits a person can possess. It reflects compassion, empathy, and a desire to uplift others. However, when kindness is offered without limits or boundaries, it can sometimes have unintended consequences, leading to situations where others exploit the giver's good nature. While this is not a reflection of the person's character, it highlights an unfortunate reality about human behavior and the importance of balancing generosity with self-respect. When someone consistently acts with kindness, it can become easy for others to assume this is simply who they are, and that they will always be available to help, regardless of the circumstances. This assumption can lead to exploitation, as people may start to expect and demand kindness rather than appreciating it. Over time, the genuine efforts of a kind person might be taken for granted and their intentions can be overlooked. Instead of being valued for their generosity, they may find themselves in situations where they are being used to fulfill the needs and desires of others without reciprocation. The problem often arises from the way kindness is perceived. Many people view acts of kindness as signs of compliance or submission, particularly when they are not accompanied by clear boundaries. For instance, someone who never says no or who is always willing to go the extra mile might inadvertently communicate to others that they are willing to put their own needs aside for the sake of others. While this is a selfless attitude, it can also open the door to manipulation. Some individuals, whether intentionally or not, may see this as an opportunity to prioritize their own interests at the expense of the kind person's well-being. Furthermore, kindness without boundaries can lead to an imbalance in relationships, whether personal or professional. In friendships, a kind person might find themselves always being the one to listen, support, or provide, while receiving little in return. In the workplace, they might be burdened with extra tasks or responsibilities simply because others know they won't refuse. This imbalance creates an unhealthy dynamic, where the kind person's needs are consistently overlooked and their worth is undervalued. Overfamiliarity occurs when people become so accustomed to someone's consistent behavior or presence that they begin to take it for granted. While kindness, generosity, and reliability are admirable qualities, overfamiliarity can distort how these virtues are perceived. When someone is consistently kind or accommodating, others may start to see these traits as default rather than deliberate actions, diminishing their appreciation for the effort involved. This lack of recognition can lead to disrespect, either intentionally or unintentionally, as people fail to value what they have come to expect as a constant. When individuals frequently exhibit kindness, it can create a perception of predictability. Others might assume that the person will always be there to help, support, or provide, regardless of the circumstances. This predictability, while rooted in positive traits, can cause people to lose sight of the value of these actions. Over time, kindness and generosity become less remarkable and more routine in the eyes of others. The consistent giver may feel their efforts are no longer acknowledged or valued, even though they continue to put thought and energy into their actions. Another aspect of overfamiliarity involves entitlement. When people receive kindness on a regular basis, they may begin to feel entitled to it, rather than seeing it as a gift. For example, if someone is always available to help a friend in need, the friend might stop asking politely or expressing gratitude. Instead, they may start assuming that assistance will always be provided, regardless of the giver's circumstances or needs. This sense of entitlement can erode the mutual respect that forms the foundation of healthy relationships. In some cases, overfamiliarity can also lead to a power imbalance. If one person in a relationship is consistently giving while the other is primarily receiving, the dynamic may shift in a way that fosters disrespect. The receiver might begin to view the giver as someone who exists solely to meet their needs, rather than as an equal partner or friend. This imbalance can be particularly damaging when the giver's contributions are overlooked or dismissed, leaving them feeling undervalued and unappreciated. Overfamiliarity also diminishes the boundaries that are essential for maintaining respect in relationships. When someone is overly accommodating or fails to assert their limits, others might unconsciously push those limits further. What begins as innocent reliance on someone's kindness can escalate into disregard for their time, energy, and well-being. This erosion of boundaries can lead to situations where the kind person's contributions are no longer respected or even acknowledged. The problem is compounded by human nature's tendency to devalue what is readily available. People often appreciate things more when they are rare or hard to obtain. When kindness is given consistently and without hesitation, it loses its sense of rarity, and its value can diminish in the eyes of others. This is not to say that being kind or generous is wrong, but rather that without clear boundaries or a balance in the relationship, these qualities may not receive the respect they deserve. Breaking the cycle of overfamiliarity requires a deliberate effort to set boundaries and foster mutual appreciation. It is important for individuals to communicate their needs and assert their limits, ensuring that their kindness is seen as a choice rather than an obligation. This can be done without diminishing the spirit of generosity. Instead, it reinforces the idea that acts of kindness are meaningful and intentional. Additionally, those on the receiving end of kindness should make a conscious effort to express gratitude and acknowledge the efforts of others, helping to create an atmosphere of mutual respect and appreciation. Ultimately, overfamiliarity breeds disrespect because it blinds people to the value of what they have. 2. Kindness without self-respect undermines its value. Kindness is a powerful virtue, but when it is not grounded in self-respect, it can lose its value and impact. People who give generously and consistently without asserting their own worth may unintentionally invite others to overlook or diminish their contributions. This occurs because kindness, when offered without regard for one's own boundaries and needs, can appear as an obligation rather than a deliberate and meaningful choice. When a kind person does not prioritize their own self-respect, they may find it difficult to say no or establish limits. This can lead to a cycle where others repeatedly seek their assistance without considering the strain it may place on them. Over time, the giver's actions may no longer be viewed as acts of generosity, but rather as something expected or routine. This diminishes the appreciation for their kindness, as it begins to be taken for granted. Moreover, a lack of self-respect can result in a failure to communicate personal needs effectively. For example, someone who consistently prioritizes others' happiness over their own may struggle to express when they need support or when their kindness is being stretched too far. This imbalance in communication can further erode mutual respect in relationships, as others may not even realize the toll their demands are taking on the kind person. The absence of self-respect can also lead to resentment. While the giver may initially feel fulfilled by helping others, they may eventually feel drained or unappreciated if their efforts are not reciprocated or acknowledged. This internal conflict can make acts of kindness feel like burdens, stripping them of their joy and authenticity. To prevent kindness from being undervalued, it is essential to pair it with self-respect. This means setting clear boundaries, advocating for one's own needs, and recognizing that kindness should be a choice, not a sacrifice. When kindness is rooted in self-respect, it gains strength and authenticity, making it more impactful and deserving of admiration.